suburbs? Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
WESN.
The past seems to be casting its shadow over this election, because on one hand you have an opposition party that's only saying, look at what we did in the past, doesn't necessarily translate to how they're going to accomplish things in the future, given the fact that circumstances are very different. And then you have an incumbent party that's saying, well, we'll promise you things, but you can't help but look at the very recent past and say, why didn't they do it all the time that they had the last 9 to 10 years to get some of these things done? Not everything would have been literally trying to build Rome in a day. Some of the things might have been, you know, a bit more practical and relatively simple as major policy issues could be. And one of those things is the situation with the demerit point system, where now the Minister of Works and Transport is saying, well, they're looking to pass legislation to make some changes, because the suspension, when too many demerit points are accumulated, that seemingly, maybe it might be too harsh. There were complaints. I'm pretty sure that there were a lot of complaints the whole time it was there. And first, I want to ask the question, to what extent do politicians really not have a pulse of the nation? We're not talking about just the grassroots or the low-income demographic. We're talking about all economic factors, because you have to know what the business owners are thinking, what the middle-class people are thinking, what the poor people are thinking, what the people in the north, south, east, Tobago, southeast. You have, if you really want to say that you are a government for all, you have to have a good grasp of everyone's perception, everyone's issue, everyone's concern. And I do wonder, to some extent, there are certain things where maybe they want to brush off complaints, thinking, that's just haters, or the opposition stay in trouble. I don't know what it is, but it seems as though, and maybe if the UNC wins the next election, they will suffer the same failure or make the same mistake. But it seems as though there are a lot of blind spots. But let's move on from that so we don't get stuck too much. One of the things they want to do is, instead of suspending a license, you have to take a refresher course. And I think at the end of the day, it was said that this whole situation was not to penalize drivers or earn revenue, something that a lot of cynics and conspiracy theorists would not believe. But anyway, let's take it at face value and assume it to be true. But to change the culture of wayward driving, which to some extent, yes, harsh penalties can be utilized to try to change a shift, and then you ease up on the gas, right? Now, again, they could have eased up on the gas before Parliament dissolved. They said this is a simple majority. They call the elections when they call the elections. So now everything with regards to timing will always kind of look suspicious, as though you're trying to take advantage of the election timing to make it appear like you have things ready to come down the pipe, and if only you're re-elected. You call the election, and you could have done this before you called the election. You could have waited a week. But this whole thing about a refresher course, part of the reason why, in my opinion, we have a lot of wayward driving is because historically we have poor accountability with regards to how people get their licenses from the jump, from the start. From the very beginning of someone's driving career, the bacchanal start. Because to some extent, when I was going to secondary school, I think there was the prevailing thought, at least for some of my peers, that if you actually dared not to offer the licensing officer anything, there's a good chance you wouldn't get through. Now, I don't know to what extent that is true or not true, because I did not take an account of who gave or did not give. We did not give, right? I took my time when it came to learning to drive and actually getting on the road. And it's one of those things where I haven't kept up to date. So I don't know what the current sentiment is, if that's a thing of the past, if that's worse than before, or what have you. But just how licensing was managed. Not to saying that everybody that works in that department, that ministry, that office is bad. But as a culture, we got too used to greasing the wheels. You're not greasing the wheels to do something illegal. You're greasing the wheels just to kind of ensure you get what you're entitled to. Even if the young person is a capable driver, it's still kind of setting up the process to be bad. And then, of course, there's a whole host of other cultural influences with regards to how people drive, being, reckless on the road, rude on the road, not necessarily adhering to the speed limit, etc., etc. And then who thinks they have to rush or are entitled to rush. Somebody basically looked at me oncoming, not slowing down. I have the right of way. This morning, pulled out in front of me, looking at me. Not looking at me to see if I'm slowing down, because he's pulling out while he's looking at me. It's almost like if he's daring me to hit him. And the fact of the matter is, I had the right of way. He pulled out so late, I'm not expecting him to pull out. There was a good chance that if I wasn't paying attention, I would have hit him. That's just this morning. So there's something culturally with our society that likes to be a little too irresponsible at times. Then there's something culturally about a lack of accountability. And then there's the very real historical effect of it actually happening. So why do we expect drivers to be responsible? And because of the nature of our politics, people will look at things like this cynically, and to some extent they will resist and not conform. And now the whole simple refresher course makes me wonder, are we basically going to have another round of exploitation? Because I have an example of the bureaucratic runaround that I tell people every now and then, and somebody told me, I never actually thought about it, maybe the person that caused you to have to run around like an idiot for 2 to 3 weeks wanted a little something, and because we didn't give him anything, eventually there's only so much delay that they could put in before you. But basically, I spent 2 weeks flying back and forth between Trinidad and Tobago, because I was living in Tobago at the time, to end up right back where I started to get what I originally asked for. But anyway, we had to wait and see how this thing plays out, but this looks like one of those, oh, we're promising things that we could have done when we were in office, and we don't know why we didn't do it. It's not as though the legislative agenda of the, well, previous or current administration was that packed with groundbreaking things that required endless debates and special majorities. This was a little simple majority thing that could have probably, I don't know what, passed in a night. Anyway, not to spend too long, there's a whole other thing about, and this is the flip side to that, because I'm a little, yes, I don't necessarily know if I like the idea about a special refresher course, whatever that means, because, you know, I think we need to start to be more critical with the type of legislation and how it's written and how effectively it's written. Because already we're seeing deficiencies in the criminal justice system. But now they're looking at corporate manslaughter laws. After how many years Paria happened, now it's come up in the news, right? Well, because it's election. So the OWTU is saying the UNC, they're going to pass corporate manslaughter laws. And then the PNM is saying, well, you have to carefully consider it. Which technically I agree, not necessarily because I think that the PNM is the be-all and end-all. I agree in the sense that, well, our parliament of the last 5 to 10 years show me something that they have done well. The legislative capacity of the country, I think, has been underwhelming, to say the least, in no small part because the two sides have no capability to work together to do anything besides raising their salaries at one time and then abstaining from the vote to raise their salaries the second time with regards to the opposition. Oh no, they really didn't like that their salaries raised, folks. That's why they're accepting the money and they're taking it, right? We didn't hear Auntie Cam say anything about donating the extra money, the raise to charity, you know, in order to stand in solidarity with the workers. They didn't hear none of that. But anyway, to some extent, it's the two parties not working together. To some extent, it's the government because they actually have to write the things, write the legislature, and I don't know, the amount of times they have to consult with senior counsel and it doesn't seem to be as effective, or it doesn't come across as intended, or in one case, the judge basically said, this law is a waste of time, let's get rid of it, essentially, effectively. I'm paraphrasing. I don't know if I think I've reached the point now where, and okay, to be fair, we'll have a new set of parliamentarians, but for whatever reason, the ability to write and enact effective law, procurement legislation was effective and fully enacted? No. Just, I mean, we have a procurement regulator that's basically a cheerleader at this point. Amongst other things, crime legislation has basically been lacking sorely, to say the least. So to what extent should we have any expectations on this? I have no idea. All right, with that said, we had to switch gears quickly, good ladies here, but we have to get through at least one or two stories with today's daily review. Okay, so big headline, and if you couldn't see this coming, then you obviously are living in Trinidad because it's not a real place. The U.S. Department of Treasury's Office of Foreign Asset Control has revoked our licenses, not just for Dragon, but for Coquina Mannequin. Now, I'm not entirely sure what that means for Coquina Mannequin because I believe that field, part of it is on our waters, but it definitely means Dragon unless we figure out something that's more or less dead in the water, right? Something that, here's the thing that somebody put it to me last night. The government took great pains to defend Dragon when it was obvious to just about everybody that politically speaking, Dragon was probably not going to work out. And it's one of the things that you don't understand because usually when somebody is defensive of something and it fails, the finger is going to be pointed at them. They look guilty. They look like it's their fault. And this is one of many times for this administration where, ironically, it's technically not their fault or not fully their fault, But they're acting as though it's a sacred cow, so when it fails, the perception is going to be, hey, you all did nonsense here. Now, at the end of the day, we had no issue with the Dragon deal, right? Karen and I actually was happy for the deal when it was announced. The problem was, we were willing to admit that Nicolas Maduro, he was something of a wild cannon, an unstable variable, loose cannon. And for whatever reason, the government seemed to be unable. You see, I understand you can't say it, and you can't say certain things, and you can't say things a certain way. But if you try to paint us a picture that doesn't line up with reality, even if it's for the sake of diplomacy, the problem is you're sacrificing your domestic credibility. And I believe, to some extent, that's what was happening with Prime Minister Young. Even recently on the campaign trail, he is defending Nicolas Maduro as the president of Venezuela, all the while America's rhetoric directed at President Maduro is not too dissimilar, if not exactly the same as the UNC's rhetoric. So it is what it is, right? Now, there's the obvious low-hanging fruit. David Lee said, we won the government over Dragon. Yes, yes, yes. You and everybody else, right? To be fair, the statement that all the eggs in the Dragon basket is both true and false, because there are other energy projects. The problem is, they kind of all are required to add up to the whole to get us to make up the shortfall. We're short by about 40% of our daily natural gas needs. So technically, all the eggs weren't in the Dragon basket, except if you take Dragon away, you have this very big hole that really makes the sum total insufficient, to say the least, right? Now, I think one of the things, and this is something that opposition supporters need to remember, with regards to how you speak about the situation, one of the daily newspapers did a good job. They have social media responses on this. And one of the responses was essentially saying, look, this is not a PNM or UNC issue. This is a national issue. Why are you, I mean, to some extent, people who say, why are you rooting for the government to fail? Not the PNM, the government to fail on something like this. You have to understand what that means. That means we fail. Now, to sum it up, you basically have the low-hanging fruit now, where some economists are basically saying fiscal discipline, diversification, which to some extent makes me wonder, okay, the PNM is giving lip service to diversification and given their track record. I don't know if I believe them. The UNC, on the other hand, they're not necessarily speaking about diversification or fiscal discipline. They're saying, we're going to spend, 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 and not even spend on capital expenditure for new projects. They're just talking about, oh, 10% is the starting point for the unions, and we're going to cut taxes, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. And when you add it all together, you have two situations that really are losing propositions either way. So this is going to be interesting to see. Now, Stuart Young does think that there's some room to negotiate and he's going to try, but to be honest, it's hard for us to have confidence in those statements because his position on the matter is weak because of how he communicated the matter and how his predecessor communicated the matter and how Cabinet decided to speak and frame the matter. The facts don't need to change, but you would have looked a lot better if you were perceived to be more straightforward with the people and realistic with the people and not trying, because the perception, I'm not saying that you were doing this, but the perception is you were kind of mama guying the people. So to some extent, the opposition now gets to take the ball and run with it. And it's going to be hard to kind of ask people to be reasonable, because again, when you're trying to paint the whole thing of Dragon gas as, oh, it's fine, we're not worried about Trump coming in, really? The writing was on the wall and it was obvious to anybody, which is one of those things where how was it that it was that obvious to all other analysts, commentators, and politicians, but not to the sitting government? Yes, they probably knew what was going on. They just didn't want to admit it publicly. So don't fault the people for perceiving you of reading the situation wrong, because that is how you set yourself up to be interpreted. That is a you problem. That is not a me problem. That is not the population's problem. If you really want to be serious about staying in government, do me a favor and fix it. Now, the last thing I want to get to is this Sandals situation. I'll try and be quick. There are a couple of things with regards to the Sandals situation that I like a lot. First, and I'll give the Prime Minister a little bit of kudos here, they got everybody. They got, yes, to some extent, they kind of loaded the bench with all of the Tobago PNM politicians. We're talking the 2 MPs, the 2 senators, the minority leader. Cool. But they also brought in the chief secretary, the secretary for tourism. They also brought in Watson Duke. They brought in just about every business chamber in Tobago under the sun. And I think they even had one business owner that kind of represented business interests that didn't have a business chamber. We're talking the Hotel Association, the Tobago Chamber, the division of the Chamber, the Tobago division of the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, etc., etc., etc. They brought everybody in. I think they even brought the Taxi Association of Tobago as well, if my memory isn't correct. So that was one good thing about it. The second thing is, this project has been framed that Sandals will be paying for the project. It will be a Sandals-owned project. Why is that important? It's important because we own the Trinidad Hilton, we own Hyatt, and we own Magdalena, formerly the Tobago Hilton. Now, granted, Tobago's Hilton's location was worse than potentially Sandals with regards to maintenance costs because of sea blast, etc., etc. But the real lesson in Tobago Hilton is, if the situation does not work out, they could leave you with the ball and go their way. Because we spent money to build it, we own it, so we ultimately are financially responsible for it. With Sandals, it would be different. Sandals will own it, Sandals will invest, Sandals will have a stake in making sure it's successful. We don't have to, 1, put out money to build it, and 2, we are not going to have a government that's going to continue to be competing with a private industry that they say they're going to support. It's just one of those things that technically it's a conflict of interest, and it makes no sense. When the main lobby group for hotels is being led by the government-owned hotel, that's a conflict of interest, it makes no sense. So Sandals now will inject a good amount of private equity and have a new big private stakeholder that hopefully, as well as helping with marketing and a whole host of other indirect benefits of their being there. But at the end of the day, I just have to see how it's all going to be implemented. So far, everybody seems to be happy with the situation. The Chief Secretary seems to be happy with the situation. The UNC wisely has decided not to say anything bad. Dave Tanku basically said they are not opposed to Sandals. And this is one of those things where almost always they are opposed for opposing sake. And in a situation like this, if they try to do that, they will get in trouble because it will be premature. The situation hasn't even started with figuring out the details yet. So I'm glad that they kind of use their sense on this one and then just not jumping off the gun to say, hey, we don't like this, whatever, whatever, whatever. The one interesting thing is Watson Duke and how he perceives the whole Sandals situation. I think it potentially is a little bit unrealistic, some of his statements, as opposed to the Chief Secretary who said Sandals must bring their own money. Sandals bringing their own money, right? But we'll have to see how this election plays off with regards to whose stakeholders is still going to essentially be relevant, right? I mean, technically the PDP is not a dead party. And Tobago might be closer than we think. This is just one of those things with this election, folks. So let's take a break. When we come back, of course, the whole situation with the OFAC licenses, amongst other things, will be spoken about by the good lady herself. Stay tuned. This is Talking About WS, and we'll be right back after this.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
Where good private health care is affordable.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lip?
That's the business. I'm not to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the game.
not
Let's go to the last part.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really
respond to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title. It's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents, the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents. I'm back here on Talk About on WSND Content Capital Show. Michael Small with the good lady herself, Kanya Shishera, who is not gloating, folks, because like what I mentioned earlier, we didn't want Dragon to fail. We wanted it to succeed. But unfortunately, what is obviously in front of your face, you know, at the end of the day, the sky is blue. To try and, you know, if you want it to be red or orange, it really don't matter. It is blue unless something, you know, maybe the sunset will be orange. But you understand what I'm saying. The grass is green, the sky is blue. Trump won, and even if he didn't win, the Biden administration was basically kind of gearing up to say, hey, we don't like what's going on in Venezuela. So the confidence in Dragon, it was kind of hard to have, I would argue, objectively. But now we have realized the situation in what might be its finality. Karen?
I don't know if I would put it that way. What I would say, and I wasn't going to start with that because there's so much I wanted to start with, because that news came out yesterday. And when I was preparing for today's show, I was going to deal with Dragonfield and
But that was just one part.
Huh?
That would just be one part.
Yeah, it was just going to be one part, but singing the song I have been singing for over a year and a half, and saying that even under Biden, and I've said it so many times, that Shell would not make a final investment decision because even under Biden, they could not get more than 2 years. October 31st was going to be the end of the buying gas from Venezuela for cash rather than for kind. The point about it, I have said it over and over and over again, that that was not being realistic. Every indication was that it was not good. And I was not being anti-anybody. I was being for my country. I'm saying, you know, you're taking us down a garden path, you're taking us down a rabbit hole, and you have to know what you're saying cannot materialize. So this is, Trump just added the icing on that cake, but the cake was already destroyed. And I said it. So today when I was coming, let me start from where I was going to start. But I did bring an article by Ralph Mirage talking dragon gas, jamming still. And he had a lot of other articles when I go to that site on the columns that he does. And has spoken about 3 or 4 times about diversification rather than pursuing this dragon. But let me start with where I wanted to start. Because I think it's important now to look at the Prime Minister. Because that's who, you know, at the end of the day, we don't know what will be the outcome of the election. So I'm not going to go into that. But at the moment, he is the Prime Minister. And I was really taken aback by an article in the one of the daily newspapers, and actually on the Sunday papers, by a columnist. And I would ask her to do a reference to me. In fact, I would ask her to do an endorsement for me. Because there was absolutely no objectivity. And more importantly, there was little or no factual data to support the conclusions that she came to. So I decided to look for those conclusions for her. So this is what she said. She said, this is not the whole article, this is towards the end. She said, what does Prime Minister Young bring to the table? He has tremendous expertise in the law, which hopefully he will use to reduce billions in litigation spending. He has a decade in politics and government, serving in senior and pivotal positions in national security, energy as a co-chair of the negotiating team. He is also the chair of the Financial General Purpose Committee, National Security Council member. He has excellent leadership skills in international negotiation and relations. Well, there we go. His intelligence, energy, and tenacity have bolstered his understanding of governance issues. Well, that couldn't be a better endorsement of a person than that was, and it was so subjective with not one iota of proof or evidence to support it. You know, facts are stubborn things. So I just want to bring to the national community, because I think I don't have any horse in the race, and I think I have the freedom to speak. And the first thing I will say, he is a lawyer. I am a lawyer. There's something called a code of ethics, and there's something called, which we use a lot. We had it very recently in a case with which they were successful with using the cases of Reese versus Crane, breach of natural justice, all those principles that guide lawyers, that are the bedrock of law, especially in a democratic country. And yet what we had is Young agreeing. He had to agree because the Prime Minister was, the former Prime Minister was signaling along that that was going to be the Prime Minister. How was he going to be the Prime Minister? Well, because he did not let go of his party, head of the party leadership, right? He did not let go of that and went through some sort of charade of having his ministers agree that they wanted Young. Well, of course they're going to do that. He's still the party leader, and therefore he can pull you. Nomination day hadn't come, and if he feels you're against his chosen one, you will not be chosen to be an MP. And that's where the MPs become very important. And this is what we have actually from Selwyn Kojo. I know that is not his favorite person, because Selwyn Kojo does not figure that, but he said that whilst he was Prime Minister, well, he talked about how we often quoted how former Prime Minister Manning said that we do not tolerate bullying in the secondary school, or Mr. Speaker, his method is to bully you. We do not tolerate bullying in the secondary school. The minute you oppose my good friend, he gets very, very angry, and if you oppose him strongly, he becomes a raging bull. So what he said that now he had to have had inside information on this, and because no one has said what he's saying is not right. He said at last, the last PNM General Council meeting, when he passed the leadership baton to his protege, Stuart Young, he insulted his colleagues in a disgraceful manner. He called them out of their names and consigned them to perpetual ignominy. Someone called Young a squatter Prime Minister because of how he obtained his job. Now, that's right. How could he feel comfortable with that? How could he feel comfortable that the party did not select him? You know why? Because he knew he wasn't going to be selected, more or less. And the Prime Minister knew that. So the Prime Minister, this is like a dictatorship. This is what you've done. You have decided that he is going to be the Prime Minister, and the only way you could have achieved that is to prevent the party from selecting who they really want. And when they did the voting, he got 11 votes against 9. And people might have voted 9 because their nomination day hadn't come, and they very well knew that if some people were protected because of the positions and who they were, but there were many who were not. And therefore, if you want to oppose Young, you will not be selected. You will not be, and they knew that very well. You cannot use that as a guideline. And to see that he participated in something that is essentially undemocratic, essentially against every principle of natural justice. I am a lawyer too. I am a lawyer too. And that is disgraceful on his part. Disgraceful to participate in something. Why didn't he say, Prime Minister, let the party decide? Because they couldn't take that risk. They knew they could not take that risk because it was more than likely that Penny Beckles or Foster Cummings would have come out. You couldn't take. How do you feel to be a Prime Minister under those circumstances? How do you feel that we are supposed to be a democratic republic? It's a disgrace on you. It's a disgrace on you. And then we have this. So that's the first thing. So I don't know why anybody could extol his virtues when coming in like that. I don't know how you could. And let's look at, is he talking about intelligence and negotiate and all these kind of things, swinging his bases. Okay, let's look at the facts, right? When he became Minister of National Security in 2018, 6th of August 2018, the murder rate in 2017 was 495. Now, I won't hold him for the 2018 because he came in around August. But he was there for the whole of 2019. And at that date, he recorded the second highest murder rate in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. That wonderful, intelligent, negotiator, fantastic minister, right? And in serious crime, unless we take 2020, where we had an SOE and we had the public regulations, you saw a decrease. But in every other area, especially murder, how is he considered that? And then you have the Tren de Agua report. The Tren de Agua report, which was published in one of the daily newspapers on the Sunday, talked about the Tren de Agua report. And what they said, first of all, it said they were here for over 3 years, which would be 2020 to 25. But if you reread the report, which I did read the report, this is I can't pronounce it Spanish, huh? Transparencia, Venezuela, I don't know, I can't pronounce it too well.
Don't ask me. Yeah.
Okay, all right, so we both in the same boat.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, but this is the part. This is what I read. right? And this is coming from them in their 101-page report. What did they say? They said it is not true to say that the Tren de Agua was operating in Trinidad since 2022. They said they've been operating in Trinidad. I want to find exactly the words. I said, okay, this is it. I think I have it. They have been operating in Trinidad since 2018. Who was the Minister of National Security from 2018 to 2021? They listed it. They said, although I'm trying to get the exact, this is what it said. This is what it said. In the report, so it's not me, the Tren de Agua operates in countries where the most Venezuelan migrants have arrived, such as Colombia, Peru, Chile, and Trinidad and Tobago, as well as the United States and Mexico, setting off alarm bells in countries where since 2022 there have been indications of possible money laundering by its criminal organization. But then they went on to say, and I want to read it because I don't want anybody to say I'm making up this, because I read it. It says, but they said that they have been in the country, and while law enforcement in Trinidad and Tobago say they have only known about the existence of Tren de Aragua here just over 3 years, again, Transparencia Venezuela in its report found that since 2018, 5 years before the police and military intervention in the Toracon prison, there were already reports of the Tren de Aragua actions on the border of Venezuela with Colombia, Brazil, Aruba, Bonaire, Trinidad, and Tobago, committing crimes of extortion, migrant trafficking, illegal mining, and smuggling, especially Basili. So he was the Minister of National Security.
Illegal mining? I wonder.
Oh, well, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that.
We may or may not have issues with bureaucracy and illegal mining. And
let me just get to that. So
might be a thing in Trinidad.
So we finished with the his performance. He's extremely able, capable minister. So I don't think you could call that a stellar performance. Matter of fact, I think you might consider it not stellar at all. But then he went into the Ministry of Energy, and he took up that portfolio, I think, in March of, I think it was in April 2021, he took up that thing. So what are his claims to fame? That SIP project was given the go-ahead since 2019. It's in the report, BP's reports, and they said that they acknowledged that they would have gas, the first gas in 2025, which is what they did. He is responsible for that. Also to Ginger and Frangipani, all of those contracts, all of those agreements preceded him, I think under Mr. Khan, I'm not sure. It certainly was not under him. And when I was coming today, I was going to talk about the Dragon Field. I was going to talk about the Dragon Field.
Listen,
because I was going to quote.
I need to say, rarely do Karen and I speak more than once. Yeah. Usually it's a robust conversation that is, full of a lot of information.
True.
But Karen, she was like, she had to call and update me because I was disconnected at the time. I was busy doing something. So when I got the call, I was like, oh, it finally happened. I guess. And it wasn't a surprise.
Right, because how long have I been saying it? At least a year and a half. Don't you understand? What has he been telling you? What negotiating skills he had? The negotiating skill? He could not get OFAC under Biden to give him more than 2 years for buying gas from the Dragon Field because it's close to our first platform in the Trinidad waters. He gave him up to October 2021. Shell, which is the major investor, would not sign the final investment decision. And the reason is, well, before even Trump came on the scene, Maduro was too mercurial. There was this lack of stability. And one thing business likes is certainty. They want to be able to know how they invested. How many times have I said that was not going to go through?
Not just that, especially with Maduro. There's one thing to want certainty with politicians. But Venezuela has a history of, we'll take your stuff and take over ownership from you.
Right. I mean, Venezuela with the maximum, they tried everything under Biden. And here comes Trump. That is why, on a bigger picture, for us to continue to rely on energy sector is a mistake we are making, because I was saying that oil was trading about how much the minister said it was, over $70. It's collapsed. You know why it's collapsed? Because of those global tariffs. We have less than 10%. You know why we have less than 10%? Because we trade less than 1% of imports into America, so we are no player. And nearly every country that fell into that category got a 10% tariff, except England that was eased up, and it's not part of the European Union, but what I'm saying, even Guyana got a 30-something%, and they have ExxonMobil. Maybe they have to negotiate. But the point I'm making, the writing was on the wall. I kept saying it, and this is what, you know what is the hurtful part of it? The way that the Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy, who's now your Prime Minister and Minister, kept on, in my view, misleading the public that this dragon fee was just going to come just now. I'm quoting Rubio. What did Rubio say? Rubio said we don't want to harm children. What does that mean? I understand politics. That is like saying nothing. He made no definitive decision about how they
commitment.
Or commitment in anything except we don't want to. Well, we don't want to hurt us. But
well, and I think to me, it came across that could mean anything, and it could very well mean we don't want to hurt Trinidad and Tobago, but based on how we perceive what it means to hit Trinidad and Tobago, not necessarily what you think hit Trinidad and Tobago would mean.
So on the 6th of April, Dragonfield jamming still, and he had a lot of articles on this,
This is last year, or this year?
No, this year.
Oh, this is just...
Ralph Branch.
This is 3 days ago?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Right.
Okay.
And he had a number of articles. If you
Right.
But this was his latest one.
Yes.
And this is what he said. Yes, folks, an entire decade, and dragon gas still in the air. 10 years ago, we first heard then Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley say dragon gas coming from Venezuela to save Trinidad and Tobago's economy. Remember that picture of Rowley and Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro, each in Congo lines in Caracas, dancing in celebration of the salvation and never came? And over the decade, Rowley kept pumping and peddling hope, raspidizing, I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, recklessly to a waiting population, terming dragon gas the lifeblood for Trinidad and Tobago, describing a flimsy license from the untrustworthy Maduro to produce the gas or golden fleece, but also OFAC. Don't forget OFAC. Shell and playing with that, right? They asked for 15 years and they didn't get it. Remember that unforgettable spectacle of Rowley with his energy minister, Stuart Young, both oozing with joy in public, absurdly holding up their golden fleece for the media, an enlarged photograph of the license handed to them by Maduro. But Maduro's license doesn't mean anything if you don't get OFAC license, Right, and that's what I kept saying. I warned this. Golden fleece could turn out to be as fanciful as Greek mythology. And then they're still hoping, he says jamming still, after meeting Trinidad and Tobago's new Prime Minister, Stuart Young, and U.S. Secretary Mark Rubio in Jamaica, and they didn't even come here. They went Jamaica, they went Suriname, they went Ghana. Take that. And U.S., yes, they went everywhere but us.
That is true.
Yes.
I didn't necessarily consider that, but that actually seems plainly obvious now.
But you see, the politician...
In hindsight, The
politician will pick up those things.
But to be fair, that is something I should have picked up on before as well, and I didn't.
Sean.
I didn't.
Okay,
I'm
Sean.
sorry.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I think I'm too optimistic. So I allow myself to be too idealistic.
Okay, so hear what he said.
Hopeful.
He said, Stuart Young came back, and hear what he had to say from Jamaica. He said, Marco Rubio, he reported that Rubio said, we are not going to harm Trinidad and Tobago. What does that mean? That means nothing.
I mean, I'll be honest, from the moment I heard that, I did not get the sense that it meant that Dragon was safe.
Exactly.
Right? Like, again, that could mean that the U.S. will try and facilitate something, but not necessarily Dragon. And
not only they're not facilitating Dragon, you don't see what they did? They went and signed an MOU with Ghana, right, to give them security assurances. They have ExxonMobil operating in Guyana, right, and they have made it. Look what he did. He has the whole world in chaos. He said he's adding a secondary tariff of 25%, including the original tariff, to any country who buys or sells gas or oil from Venezuela.
Well, in some cases, you could even argue that's a tertiary tariff, because like with China, there were the original tariffs, then he added tariffs with this round, and then if they trade with Venezuela, they're going to get the 25 off on top of that.
That's true.
So
that's true. But I want to stick with him in energy. He's so fantastic, right? So now we know that Dragonfield, just as what I said, was never going to happen. Not now. It may happen in the future. And I said 2 weeks ago that what they should be concentrated, and maybe they are, because I heard him say he has plan B and C. So I hope plan B and C is eat some humble pie, stoop the conquer, and talk to Guyana and Suriname to be able to have that refinery that we are restarting to refine the fuel, so we don't need to be importing hundreds of millions of dollars of fuel to Trinidad. So what do we know now? Dragonfield has been revoked. End of Dragonfield. What have we known now? The Lincoln, Coquina, and Mannequin, is it? They have, because it's a cross-border field.
Right.
With BP, they have revoked the license for them to develop and exploit with Venezuela. Don't you see the writing is on the wall? And I said 2 weeks ago when I was on the show last time and I saw Professor Emeritus Brian saying that, so maybe that's plan B. I said, you know, this is a time for CARICOM to strengthen itself. This is a time to build relationships with Guyana and with Suriname, at least in oil refinery, because Guyana, I don't know if people know this, but Guyana has one small LNG gas line for domestic purposes, but they announced they are building a larger gas line which will deliver much more natural gas to Berbice, where they intend to set up the equivalent of a petrochemical plant.
Right.
So we are in real trouble. So we need to understand, forget about Lauren. I read 24th of October, all of this going on, and Minister Young said he's trying to buy the Lauren field. What nonsense are you talking about?
Well, at this point, that kind of would be impossible.
October 2024.
You can't spend money to buy something from Venezuela.
No, we don't have any money either.
Well, that's true.
Trinidad and Tobago in advance negotiate to acquire Lauren field from Venezuela, October 2024. Look at it right here.
Right.
Right? What
no, but the other thing was, and one of the things that I felt was a bad idea of political statements or campaigning, when Prime Minister Young tried to say, well, we did everything we could to keep the refinery open. Really? Because here's the problem. The only suitors they have now, I think there was an article somewhere that basically said anybody that is going to be willing to reinvest into that refinery is going to be just like Oando or Jindal. They're going to have a lot of red flags, and are you going to want to take that risk? But more importantly, it's an old asset that's been in mothballs for 7 to 8 years.
It says it's going to cost $1 billion to start it back up.
More importantly, I would just like to know, how is Oando going to operate it? And I've asked this before. How is it going to magically be profitable with Oando, but under local management it was losing money? Like, was it just because local management was that bad? In which case we have to ask accountability, merit, job performance. Where was that? You restructured Petrotrin, right? So this restarting refinery now, that's an uphill battle.
But that's the other thing. You know what this all tells you? The volatility and uncertainty of energy. Because I've been following it up. And what they're saying is that they're back. There was an article saying everyone is going back to oil and natural gas because the solar projects and the wind projects have not been as successful. So they even said that Shell is not, I think it's BP, is no longer pursuing the solar farm in Brecon Castle, and most of these companies. So you see, there was a good feeling because natural gas was trading over $4. It's now $3.50, and it's going down. And oil is, I know this is a basket they look at, but it's going down to under $60. It nearly went under $60.
I think we need to understand, the basket was not that, oh, we have multiple possibilities, any one could get us out of trouble. The basket was, we need all of the eggs, right, to make a sufficiently large omelette, and you take one egg out of the basket, all of a sudden the basket just is not enough. So it's not that, oh, all the eggs were in the dragon, right, but they were all in the energy basket, and even with all of even if everything came online, the question was, could it make up the 40% shortfall of the daily need?
I think the bigger picture that we are learning now is when you're dealing with the energy sector, oil and gas, one day prices are up, and another day it collapses. We don't have the production, So in 2022, we relied on the price, and the price was looking good in the last few weeks. But guess what? It has done a nosedive because the whole world is reacting to the potential of a global recession and therefore less demand for those same products. And you're seeing the price of oil falling, down to $60. You are seeing natural gas coming off from the highs of the $4 thing to $3.50, at least I checked it this morning. And what I am saying is, that leads me to all of these plans. Ginger, Frangipani, SIP, they announced that they were going to start the expiration of final investment in 2019. You were nowhere around. And they said that it was going to bring the first gas in 2025, which they did. Right? The Manatee project, we were supposed to have gotten the first gas in 2025. Well, we know that didn't happen. They signed a unitization agreement in 2007, and they had to terminate it. What is going on? How is he a master negotiator? You tell me all of the big projects, Ginger, the Manatee Coquina, well, we know that in trouble. The SIP project, he cannot take, thing, but what he could take thing is telling the people that train 1 was on, going on CNN and saying that. Now, I will give him the credit for unitizing train 2, 3, and 4, because the only one that we had any investment was train 4 and nothing in train 2 and 3. And by unitizing it, we have a 10% stake in this unitized train 2, 3, and 4, and the reason they did it is to increase our revenue take. Right? So I will give him that. But the Dragon Field, my God, what are you, then your bid rounds, I wrote them down. Your deep water bid rounds, when you are thinking 4 out of 17 took the, responded to your bid round. Not only then, that was the deep water bid rounds in 2021, and it closed in December 2021. So you were in the business, 4 out of 17. In 2022, you had 8 out of 11. That was the onshore and nearshore competitive bid round, which you introduced this competitive thing that would supposedly make things better. But in October 2023, you did a shallow water bid round. It closed in May 2024, and you had only 4 of the 13 taken up. No bids for 9 blocks. Only 1 bid for 3 blocks, and 3 bids for 1 block. Right? That is your contribution. That is your contribution. And then let us look at what you did. Let us look at now that you are Prime Minister. Let us look. So as far as I am concerned, you have been a complete failure with Dragonfield, which was your pride of, I don't know, I think.
Well, how they framed it, yes, I can understand why you say that. We're not saying it literally was his baby, but the way how they spoke about it was, you know, it leaned the needle of the perception towards that direction.
Yeah, and I think he wanted to, you know, he was so enamored and so invested in it that he couldn't see the forest from the trees. Everything was telling you that that wasn't going to go. How many times I said it on your show? How many times I said they need to go 2 weeks? Concentrate on Suriname and Guyana, because Guyana, by the way, had an MOU with the Dominican Republic, and it seems like they put on hold building a refinery. So maybe there's opportunity there. Let's see, you know, but he's not the one to do it. So let me see what he has accomplished since he is Prime Minister and Minister of Energy, but Prime Minister. Under him, we now have a tariff, a secondary tariff, not just the 10%, but the secondary tariff for anybody who deals with Venezuela in gas and oil, right? That's what we have achieved. He's so good at negotiating. Next thing we do know, which looks very bad on his part, I have to say, is that video, and they have not denied it, and I have seen it, where he's going around, this is the most religious, well, I know there's another one that's very important to the Islamic community, but that's the one we have a national holiday for, and it's highly recognized, and that's the day that you give alms. So, yes, giving only $20, but you see, that Freudian slip is a heck of a thing, you know. It's a heck of a thing when you have a Freudian slip, because I saw it myself. Giving the lady, she said something nice to him. He handed her $20, you're going to vote for me, right? Now, he has not denied he said that.
Listen.
So if that is not disgraceful, dishonorable, and disgusting, and a lack of respect for the Islam thing, to use your politicking on a holy day like that and giving out $20 and telling you you're going to vote for me, right? You did not deny it, so I have to assume you did that, and that is disgraceful.
This is the thing. I understand he wanted to partake in the exercise to integrate with a religious custom, but the point is, we're in an election season and you're handing out money. In what world could that look horrible?
Yeah, but he could have gotten around that, to be fair. I'm sure his marketing team and his whole team...
Well then, listen, you need to be fully aware of what's going on and not fall for that pitfall and not have a Freudian slip.
That is what I'm saying.
So usually what happens is...
What the Prime Minister is.
Even good public speakers who have their P's and Q's, they weigh the pros and cons, and sometimes they say, let's not even take the risk because it's not worth it.
No, you can't take the risk with him. That is
what I mean to say, let's not give out money, let's not potentially be seen. And essentially, the outcome that you're speaking of. No, I do think so. I think this is one of those things
why I don't agree with you? Because had he not done that, he knew he was going to get criticism for doing it, right?
Okay. That's a fair point. He
knew he was going to get criticism for it. And he would say, what do you mean? I cannot give out arms. We are not the government. These are not serving the people. This is a part of the tradition. So he could have easily bounced back with that. But what he made a mistake, you see, what he really was doing, it seemed to me, was politicking. And he made a slip. Made a slip. And it all fell down. That's one. Then the other thing that, the AV drilling. You are an officer of the court, Mr. Stuart Young, Prime Minister Stuart Young. You owe a duty first. Look at your code of ethics. Before your client, before anybody, you owe a duty to the court as one of its officers. You should know that. The court made an order for stopping the illegal mining because there was no license for the Waterloo, which happened to be mined by a good friend of the former Prime Minister, Alan Warner. And you flouted the court. That is what it is. I look at it as that. You flouted the court's order by giving the man's son a conditional license to do exactly what the court ordered that he could not do. That you are an officer of the court? That is not an officer of the court. That is following instructions as far as I can see. And then there's the whole thing in Tobago, which has not been ventilated. And then on top of that, AV drilling. Yes, you were not there when AV drilling started, but you were there. You were there when the decision was made by Heritage, which comes under your ministry. You paid $50 million to commission inquiry, who castigated your government for the way that they treated those people, had them out in the rain, not telling them anything, the way they were treated. And he came up with a decision that both you and the independent contractor were responsible for the death. Plus, we don't have corporate manslaughter in our statute books, but the Heritage alone was held responsible for that. This is a QC because they have QCs in Jamaica still. And he took over from Dennis Morrison, who has died, God rest his soul. Most respected, the first person to get a first class, or get 10 A's in, at law school, which is almost impossible. And he's a first class honors. He's brilliant. He's highly respected. So he took over from him, and he castigated his government. And what do you do on the eve of election? On the eve of election, you come in and giving people, you haven't given to them yet, you know. They will be getting 1 million. The people are insulted by that. Insulted. And you know, that is another thing, is a stain on you because you are the Prime Minister. And the other thing is a stain on you is, I think, about AV drilling. Now, when did that happen? Was he Minister of Energy then? Because he didn't start off. He didn't start off there.
I don't think it would have started. Because remember,
it did not start with him.
This ANV didn't it start even before the Keith Rowley administration?
No, but that's not the point, though.
No, but I think he may have been the Minister of Energy when the appeal didn't go through.
That is my point.
He may have been.
That is my point.
We gotta look this up to be sure.
Deborah Peake had an 18-page letter, which obviously they leaked, and she said that the arbitrators misconducted themselves in the carrying out of the proceedings. They said there was enough evidence there to talk about the slightest thing, this standard of proof, which is almost a criminal standard, which is not in keeping with the arbitration rules, and accepting only apparently the evidence that the AV drilling, who happens to be a good friend of the Prime Minister, whose daughter, Mr. Bash, was sitting in the Senate, right, and would not appeal. I have the thing, they would not appeal. She said that that is not right. And you sat back there and allowed that. And then let's go to the refinery bidding. I mean, this is disgraceful. You all are disgraceful. You are the Prime Minister and the Minister of Energy.
Yeah, he might
right?
have been the Minister of Energy for a few months before
April. And then who's
of 21?
And June they made the decision.
No, it might have been even later than that.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. But yes,
right?
it seems as...
And then
June, you're right, June.
Yes, I know, I looked it up, right? And you sat down there and you would not give instruction. The Petrotrin Senior Council wants AV drilling set aside. This is reported in one of the daily newspapers. She wasted her time. She said the opinion which was delivered to Petrotrin yesterday, in which the Guardian media has a copy, reads, in the premises, we have the respectful view that the award discloses gross and fundamental errors on the face of the award, and the arbitrators are guilty of misconduct in the conduct of the proceedings. The findings on the principal issues are irrational and unsupported by the evidence for the foregoing reasons. We are of the view that the prospect of setting aside the award is good, and they would not set it aside, and they would not appeal to the High Court because I suspect they didn't want it to go to the Privy Council.
Which looks really bad when you realize what the Minister of Finance, what he sent to the Privy Council, and how blatantly obvious it was a losing case that was sent to the Privy Council. They were willing to send that. So
why wouldn't you do that? It was 80 millions. They had reports that showed that they're saying that they were not delivering how much it said. She said, Petrotrin will abide by its senior counsel. The word states that Petrotrin is required to resolve. Hear what they said. Every possibility that there might be an innocent explanation before deciding whether to terminate the contract. This is a standard of proof that does not apply to the words of Article 29.1 of the arbitration rules, which requires reasonable grounds for suspected misconduct or wrongful activity. To require that termination may only lawfully take place where there is no possible innocent explanation akin to the criminal standard of proof beyond reasonable doubt. And he was the Prime Minister then. Or Minister of Energy, he was Minister of Energy.
Yeah.
Why didn't you send it to the High Court? Because you know what would have happened when it went to the Privy Council. That's what I'm saying. Because Deborah Peake is highly respected. She sits on the disciplinary committee in Trinidad and Tobago. And as I've said, I was in class with her. She came first in law school. She's a national scholar. And I've never heard anything about her that is questionable. But the other one now, Mr. Prime Minister, the bid for the refinery, you had to change the procurement legislation in 2016 to allow disposal of real estate. And it's 58.1A and 58.1B. And you had to pass the regulations. This is 9 years later. The procurement regulator had to say that she doesn't know what her role is. You all decided that. And guess what Orlando is? This is who you all have as your short list. Orlando announces suspension of security list with Johannesburg Stock Exchange. Orlando PLC, Nigeria's leading indigenous energy group, listed on both Nigerian Exchange Limited and Johannesburg Exchange Limited, hereby wishes to notify the public and its shareholders that it has received a letter dated the 27th of March 2024, that's last year, from the JSE suspending the secondary listing of its securities due to the inability to meet extended deadline to publish their 2022 audited year-end results. You understand? And there was an article in The Guardian talking about question marks about Orlando's financial rules raised eyebrows. So, Mr. Prime Minister, you should stop that process, pass the regulations, and let the procurement regulator get value for money, transparency, and accountability. Those are some of the things that make me say, oh, and what was the last one? I said the giving out the money. And Paria. With the 50 million. I mean, it's just disgraceful. It's just disgraceful.
All right. I want to take a quick break. And when we come back...
The bullying. I have to talk about the bullying.
We also have some comments to answer, some of which is direct questions on the topic at hand. So we'll answer. When we come back from the break, all right? So we'll be right back after this.
All right.
name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
And we're back here and talk about another WSN. Connect a little kindness to share with me. One last aspect, then we'll get to the comments, and of course the phone lines will be open with Karen.
I feel very strongly and passionately about it. I didn't mention the one where he was caught on the hot mic. It tells you how he thinks. The great,
yes,
graceful.
I know one of our callers said they all do it, but the point is you would hope that he would be better than. Right? Yes. And he's trying to make himself come off as though he's better than.
Exactly.
And if he is, just like everybody else.
And they don't all do it. I will correct you on that, because I know people think I defend Mr. Manning a lot, but Mr. Manning did not tolerate that. I remember there was an incident with one of my colleagues, and he was fuming mad with a member of the opposition, and Mr. Manning warned him. He is not.
I fear, Karen, in this case, you might be like the professor. You're remembering the good times that
okay,
was,
so let me go to
and not the bad times that are.
Okay, so let me just deal with the bullying thing, right? Because something not adding up. But this is what Salman Kaju said. When Young assumed office, a relative of Imran Khan, who was Young's classmate at St. Mary's College, accused the latter of bullying Khan for years. Young responded, this is his response, the issue of bullying in this country is unfortunately real, and one that I take very seriously as a father and now as Prime Minister trying to be, which says nothing. He counted in classic form of evasion, quote, it is deeply unfortunate, and Salman Kaju says for whom, that an incident that took place when I was a teenage schoolboy, so that makes it less, right, has resurfaced in a way that does not allow for full and fair discussion. It does. You can't talk about it. This incident was tragic for everyone involved, meaning for him too. He suffered. He suffered. He promised to ensure that our schools are safe places where our children can feel protected and get the support that is needed. This is my community trying to be. Well, let me tell you, Minister Young, it ain't happening. And I'm speaking, it's not happening. So it's empty words. And even in the so-called prestige schools. And this is the point. Orrin Gordon understood the nature of Young's evasive response. He wrote, quote, we need to know what happened before we consign the past to history, irrelevance or extend or withhold reconciliation. We need to be clear what we're supposed to be moving on from before we move on. I hope Young grasses Secretary of Gordon's analysis. Young continued, the public interest is not served by politicizing an issue as sensitive as bullying, which is a thoughtful discussion and meaningful in solutions. What we want you to say, and you have to understand, Mr. Young, it is highly unlikely. It's highly unlikely this young man, unless he had a mental issue, that one day he would wake up, pick a baton, and beat you to the extent to which there had to be intervention by the school. It is highly unlikely. It's more likely that he had been bullied by yourself and others and reached a point where he could take it no more. That's called provocation. Even in law, Mr. Young, that is a good mitigating factor in murder if you're being provoked. And he could take it no more, I understand from the reports, because of his small size and all other things. And he probably found you all by yourself and got a chance. And I am not condoning what he did. It never had to reach that. And for you now to come across as if the injured party, literally and otherwise, but who provoked the whole situation? I'm sure it was not he. He reached a breaking point, and that is what happens. And then the school, as an institution, needs to protect itself. We need to hear from you. Were you part of a group that bullied this young man over the years? Were you or were you not a part of it? Did you make his life miserable whilst he was there? And did he reach a point where he could no longer take it? And should you not have been punished also? Should you not have been punished also? Because unless he did it without any provocation, I agree, he alone. But if you were part and parcel of making this boy reach to that point, you should have been punished also. And your father, according to the reports, was on the board of St. Mary's College. And you had, according to reports again, Llewellyn McIntosh, who I happen to know because I did international short pants. I did international relations with him. He was Dean of Discipline for those, group. He spoke out on it. You can't have so many voices speaking out on it and then you will not address it and talking about it's in the past. It's not in the past. That boy's still suffering from that. There are many adult people, when you speak to them, you know what they're carrying? Pain from childhood. Pain from childhood that they carry into the, and the injustice of it. So don't tell us to move on. Let us stand for transparency, stand for accountability, and tell us your part in it. Because it seems to me, if he was provoked over those years, you should have been punished too. And I don't know how they handle it. Father DeVutai said he wasn't expelled, but you know, there's a lot of gray in that. So let us hear the truth. Let us hear, Mr. Prime Minister. You want to be Prime Minister? You want us to have trust and confidence in you after the election? Start with that.
I think we need to understand too, yes, a celebrity, an entertainer, they could try to let the winds of change kind of move the news cycle along. And when you get to a situation where you don't have, because listen, Father DeFetal, he's come out to say it didn't happen like that, but the problem is he also said, I kept no record. Not that I couldn't find my record, but that I chose not to keep a record.
That alone,
right?
is
So at
questionable.
the end of the day, it's a he said, she said, but the point is, it's one thing if you were just like an entertainer and they were bullying it. No, you are looking to lead a country. And in doing so, this is an opportunity to show leadership skills.
And the fact that you will not give details of what happened.
Exactly.
And the fact that the school, listen, I'm a Roman Catholic, I'm a practicing Roman Catholic, and I have a long history with St. Mary's College. So I'm not trying to bring down St. Mary's College at all. I am saying there must be accountability in this, and it is not right to tell us to move on from this. Right? Because if you want us to move on, it's because there's something you do not want us to know.
Okay. We have some comments to get to. I don't know if you could put up the second comments first, because we'll be more pertinent to the discussion. Okay. Well, we go with the first one. How come you're not hearing about crimes being rampant now? Part of that is media. Crime reporting is one of those things where there was a time around 2018 or so when, trust me, crime reporting was way more than it is now. And it's just one of those things where the population could only take in so much. And of course, with an election, right, it's going to become the big thing in the news cycle. Now, the politicians, they're going to be campaigning in part on crime, but they have not really been effective communicating about crime and policies to deal with crime and the reality of the crime situation. Anyway, with regards to the media, they're taking the opportunity maybe to try to switch gears to the politics because that's what's interesting. And unfortunately, media is also a business. That's the rub. In the past, the really respected journalists of ABC, NBC, and CBS of old were part of a news division which was basically a loss leader. They didn't expect it to make money, right? But now when you have CNN, MSNBC, and local TV stations don't have entertainment programming. It's basically talk shows and news, morning shows and news for the most part, right? That's what has to pay the bills. So, and newspapers, of course, their news, that's what has to pay the bills. So, to some extent, it's a combination of you don't want to overdo it with the crime reporting. That's just depressing and people eventually get numb and tune it out. But also, what's new? Well, the election is new. There are still crime stories, right? And I think part of it is that maybe, I mean, for a show like mine, I can't speak on every murder. Like, it becomes redundant and depressing to speak on every murder. But with regards to the reporting as well, they already took their foot off the gas, I think, by about 2020 or 2019. From like near 100 entries of various columns, letters to the editor, news stories, to down to 60 or less. Right? They already kind of eased up. So I'm not surprised. It's more of a, I'm not even going to say it's an ethical issue per se. It's just one of those things with regards to editorial decisions, which you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. To some extent, though, maybe we are not reporting on crime enough as it is. But that might be, at least right now, maybe it's subjective. Maybe at some point it'll be an objective failure of the media.
But I want to say, too, that crime and economy are the two numbers.
Yes.
And the other thing, too, now that we have to get a visa to go to the United Kingdom, that is directly related to the gang, according to the Mark Besant investigative report, that England had enough of it. Had enough. They have their own problems, and they're bringing, according to the report, the 6 or 7s coming there and growing that transnational crime with drugs and guns. And, you know, I think England did that to us because they said, this is my view, I might be wrong, they said, okay, you don't care because gangs killing gangs, murderers killing murderers, even if the police kill them, it's bad boys anyhow. But when the United Kingdom didn't give us any notice and say everybody, the housewife, the persons who have their children, their family up there, have to pay huge amounts for 6 months, 1 year, and they're saying you didn't take notice of us. Well, now you'll take notice, and it is directly related to the crime and the gangs in Trinidad that are migrating there and increasing their problems. So crime is on the forefront.
That's compounded by the Trende Arago reports.
Exactly.
Right? Oh, by the way, apparently crime is down in Venezuela because there's nothing to steal there. Where did all those criminals go? Where did they all go? Yeah, like crime is up. Where did they all go? Well, I wonder who is right next to Venezuela that may offer easy pickings. Because
every 2 weeks there is a crime committed. You didn't see something
when you have a United States, I think it's a State Department report that with regards to human trafficking, senior government officials are involved. Now, usually criminals figure out who the weak points are, right? You mug the people who seem to be susceptible to mugging. You rob the house that's easy to rob. You take the car that's easy to take, to break into. You go in the country where the law enforcement apparatus is not functioning as it should because it's easy pickings. And yes, so the UK said, hey, you all don't want to deal with it? Well, we'll have to deal with you. Because we did a whole Brexit for that side of the world. You all ain't no special exemption, right? Now, let's go to the next comment that we had there because this is back to with regards to the whole Dragon deal. So first of all, the first comment, the government seems indifferent to foreign policies despite the fact, I don't think that they were indifferent. However, you are not wrong coming off with that perception because they put themselves in that position for you to perceive that they're indifferent with how they spoke about Dragon, with how they said, oh, we're not worried about Trump, right? So you're not wrong. It's your perception is probably not practically accurate, but you're justified because that's how they framed it. And that's why I say what I say about communication and politicians. This is the result. Because I'm pretty sure they knew, you know, they knew reality, but they didn't want to admit reality. They wanted to be confident and try to sell a version of events so that people would be confident in them. But they didn't necessarily know what to do if the House of Cards fell apart, right? So the second part, why then Prime Minister and Energy Minister Stuart Young secure signing of an MOU during the visit to Jamaica? I think Karen basically indirectly answered that already. We had to go to them. They didn't come to us. They went to everybody else but us.
All the energy companies.
Right?
Countries.
They went to somebody, look, they went to Jamaica. Jamaica, no energy company,
no.
Energy country. They are imported too. We had to go to them in Jamaica, right? To try to talk about our situation. Most likely, what Marco Rubio told Stuart Young literally was, yeah, we'll make sure no harm comes to TNT as we see it, not as you see it. So there was no MOU to sign there, right?
Exactly.
Because Marco Rubio already went to Guyana
and signed the MOU.
And in an international press conference, he said what Kamala Prasad-Bissessar said, a narco-trafficking state.
Exactly.
Right? He also said adventurism will not be tolerated directly at Venezuela and the Essequibo situation, right? So that's their stance. Why now are they going to do anything to compromise that stance? The Russian-Ukraine war kind of showed you can't have a security threat and do business and enrich your security threat at the same time. You can't be concerned about Russia invading Eastern Europe, but then do business to enrich Russia so that they'll have more money to build up the military, to invade. And it's the same thing. You can't have a threat in Venezuela and allow deals to happen for Venezuela to get money, to build up the military, to threaten the thing that you're also trying to protect. Don't make sense.
But you know, one good thing, if I have to say it, and it might sound strange for me to say that, but I've said it already, that Trump personalizes things. We know that. He personalizes things. People lose jobs because, you know, they didn't support him or whatever. So he's a person who operates on that level. And I've said it already that he's a teetotaler, meaning that he's never drunk because he had a brother who was an alcoholic and died from alcohol-related disease. And I don't think any of his children, whatever you may say and whatever you think of them, are being associated with drinking or alcoholism or drugs. So I think the recent incidents where the intelligence, and you always hear them mention international partners cooperating with us, how many cocaine busts they have gotten, because that cocaine is going to America and it's going to Europe. And I think that the first time that the national security apparatus in Trinidad and those who are seen to be part of the drug trafficking, because it's reported everywhere, everybody knows it is a fact. I think we're going to see for the first time far more interdiction of drugs, of cocaine, and you're going to hear, yes, the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard interdicted them, the police got it there, but you'll also hear working in concert with international agencies, meaning that international agencies have the intelligence, and now you cannot get away from doing it because we are watching you.
Did you hear last week the latest impressive national security blunder of all blunders?
No, what is that?
The inmates in Golden Grove had a loaded pistol.
Oh, they did have a pistol. I thought it was phones.
No. They had a whole gun.
Loaded.
With bullets.
Oh, my God.
Right? We're not talking remand and it sneaked in. We're not talking somebody sneaked in a gun in a jail to do some... No. We're talking a prisoner had the bright idea, I need a gun. I'm in prison, but I need a gun. And I have a reasonable expectation to get away with this gun. How does that happen? How? There's so many things that's wrong with national security right now.
Can I just, you know, I am a blinkers person. So I came on today to it's you know about and giving facts. And one other fact that I neglected to mention, and which makes me even more confident that he was not going to be selected, apart from the 9/11 and all the things, squatter prime minister and all those things. When you look at the results of the 2020 elections, when it came to UNC strongholds where they won, on average, because I have the 2020 report, they either in the 50 or 60, mostly 60% turnout. Guess which are the constituencies where they had in the 40-something percent turnout. Let me give you, and I'll give you the one because he's the Prime Minister
This
now.
This is
2020. No, they tell you how many people can vote.
Yes.
Right? So it's about 25, 26,000.
Right.
And they didn't tell you who voted for what, but they show you the turnout.
Oh, yes. Well, I know the answer because you said this already. The low turnout was in the PNM areas.
But wait, let us be more clear, because there was some that had a good turnout, like that who's now the AG. She had 17,000. She did pretty well. But I'm talking about the 40-something percentile. That's what I'm talking about. Let me tell you who they are. Colin Imbert. All the Diego Martins. Colin Imbert, Simon de Mogra, and your Prime Minister, Rowley. And then let us go, at the time. But guess what? The Prime Minister of Energy, out of 25 or 26,000, guess how many the turnout was? 11,000. He and the Prime Minister were riding roughshod, whatever is the expression, because he had 47.76, and I think the Prime Minister had 47.67. And the other one was, guess who? National Security, with 43% turnout. Right?
So well, I mean, they replaced
so
him.
National Security.
Yeah. That might turn around this time. That one might turn around this time.
Yes. The National Security, Prime Minister, current Prime Minister, with, and national thing, but I'm talking about him.
Yeah.
And Minister of Finance. But what I'm trying to tell you, it shows you how unpopular he really is, that he could only get 11,000 people to come out and vote. I don't know who they voted for, but it tells you something about his popularity. That's what my point is, as well as the Prime Minister, former Prime Minister, and Imbut.
So, I mean, okay. Oh gosh, I had something to say, but I forgot. I forgot it. So we'll go, we have a couple more comments. Yeah, I have that all the time. Too many things going on in the brain. I'm trying to pay attention to you. I'm trying to plan what we're going to do. We have a couple of comments there. The first one, I think, if we're going for, for Karen, how do you see the future of Trinidad and Tobago unfolding over the next 10 to 15 years, especially in light of our current debt ceiling and the way we generate revenue?
Right. So we have to have
important part, that debt.
Yeah.
Not just your revenue.
Yes. I think we definitely have to go the way of diversity. It's going to be a tough period, but there are options. We cannot continue to rely on our revenue from oil and gas because simply the volatility is there and it will always be there. You're seeing it right now, and we don't have the production yet. And look what has happened, just like overnight. So what I would say, what we need to do and what is necessary is to do the diversification. One, for food security, have more food security, which all those European countries, Canada and America, have that. And we have to then develop upmarket agri-industry, in other words, cocoa, chocolate, coffee, panchakrama. There's so many opportunities, but you need to have, which I mentioned on this show, that they should have for agriculture and tourism and for Ministry of National Security a monitoring team who would make sure that things are done, repairs are done, and people are guided, especially in that. So I think we need to look at other revenue streams, and we also need to be able to encourage the persons at the lower income who have ability, who have creativity, but they do not have the opportunity or the empowerment. I think that is what we need, and we definitely need a change of leadership. Because I'll tell you why I think that, and I mean no offense. The reason I think we need that is because they have shown us how far they will go. The disrespect and disregard that they have shown to the Auditor General, local government, you name it. They have shown such disregard, AV drilling, I could go on and on. We need some time out. They need, just like when NAR came, they need some time out, put them in an naughty corner, regroup, and understand the PNM party, which is a good party, needs a new leadership that is not serving 1% who own nearly everything in this country. So you might as well say they own the country. We need to change that, paradigm and give the country a chance to breathe, regroup, and let the politicians understand we are not going to accept that anymore.
All right, so we have the next part comment that followed up. No, there's a second comment. Given those realities, what do you think should be the key priorities or plan of action for any government coming in to ensure long-term stability and growth? Well, the obvious low-hanging fruit, first I'll say is corruption, right? Because it really hampers everything. But that's one of those things where it's easy to say and very hard to do. So we'll move off from that. I would argue, for me, when I thought about this months ago, The thing I thought, if you wanted to try and solve the problem, where could you start? Well, increasing revenue and finding revenue streams overnight is going to be hard. This is also going to be hard, but it might be faster in some ways, and that is you have to clean up the public service and get rid of the excess baggage.
That's hard.
I know it's hard, but Karen, too much money is wasted there, Karen, and not enough productivity.
Yeah, but that comes back down to the corruption in the society.
Right, but here's the problem. Everything that you want to do will be undermined by not just the corruption, but even the low-hanging fruit of the bloated public service that allows people to be rewarded for just showing up, for tenure, not for merit, right? So you want to...
I find that is, look at in France, UK, America, well, Ireland must find them federal workers, and that causes a big problem. You know, that is what you want to do. I mean, Lala wrote a book on that, and I'm not against it, but maybe the politician in me, people have to have hope, and I'm not talking about hope, the party.
But the problem is, I think you have to take bitter medicine in any scenario at this point.
Yeah, but you're not going to be willing to take, you see, Norway and Sweden, you know why people take that bitter medicine? Because they have confidence and trust, and that is lost.
This is the unfortunate reality. In order to get any sort of real long-term solution and a positive direction, essentially what's going to happen is you're not going to have a politician that's going to have his legacy project like the airport or the waterfront or the Piarco airport or the Couva Children's Hospital. You're going to get a politician who's essentially going to have to do the hard work like A&R Robinson, and somebody else is going to benefit because they're going to come after him and they're going to be the fun parent, whereas somebody has to be the strict parent.
That is not a fair assessment from my knowledge. But what I will say is this.
That's what I think is going to happen.
Okay, but one of the things that I would use, Motley was, I think, is symbolic of a leadership where people were willing to sell, because I think at that point in time, the foreign exchange reserves was about 345 million,
Right.
Right? So we were in real dire state.
This is Barbados?
No, Trinidad Motley, I'm sorry, Wendell Motley.
Okay,
and Wendell Motley, when he was Minister of Finance, I never forgot it. As I said, I was not involved in politics at the time, but what he used to do, every Monday morning almost, he would come out and have meetings, open meetings, not closed-door meetings, with the unions, with the people, just like what they had to do in Jamaica. That's how Jamaica turned around, you know.
Right.
Jamaica turned around when everybody decided enough is enough and stopped fighting each other because everybody was suffering. And what you need is a person who inspires and tells you, I know I am telling you to make this sacrifice. I know I'm not going to give you cola. I know you're not going to get an increase. But I assure you, this is what we are going to do. And there will be light at the end of the tunnel. And guess what? They believed him. They trusted him. And because of that, the unions will cooperated with him. That's what you need. And how you need to show that, you have to show small wins. You have to show small wins. You have to show the people, the pariahs a good example. Show small wins, and people can believe they could trust you. You have to show small wins by coming and saying that this is what we're going to, and start seeing it.
You see, the problem with that is we would need to like drop even further. Things would need to get even worse, because right now people are still operating as though it's 2008, 2010, whatever. We have all this revenue, we have all of this money to throw around. The unions, they want their 10% plus, right? The opposition talking about back in our day, we spent all this money. The money not there. The PNM, yes, they're a bit more realistic, but they have no real innovative ideas.
You didn't read the article about the debt profile? When the PNM came in, right now, their debt profile, they raised it 140.
Right.
You read the article?
So the problem is that model
debt
there.
Deficits and whatever.
I think with like Barbados and Barbados, Jamaica, some of those other islands, at some point they got stable. I don't know if we're stable if our debt is so high and our energy is dependent on such a volatile industry.
You know why? Because they believe in Ms. Motley. You know why? They believe in holiness. And not only that.
But right now, a lot of the labor for the government and the unions and the various politicians and stakeholders, they are politicking. They're not saying, oh, what will we do to ensure the country is at a better foot?
Who's doing that?
Just about everybody.
Were you talking about Trinidad?
In Trinidad, yes.
Yeah,
nobody is looking to say nobody is really acting in a manner that's for the good of the country. Nobody.
You know what?
Nobody.
Okay, you know what I'm trying to tell you? This is what I'm trying to tell you.
So a change in leadership in that sense,
what
yes.
Why you think the world is threatening to go into global recession? Because one man, Trump. Why you think you had World War II and the murder of 6 million Jews? One man.
Yeah.
Hitler.
Yeah, that was one job.
Right? And yeah, but what I'm trying to say to you, when they want to stop a movement like Dr. Martin Luther King, they didn't kill Mandela, right? But they tried many times to kill Castro with a cigar.
Where are we going with this?
Right? No, what I am trying to tell you is this. Do not cult a person. Do not underestimate the ability of a leader that people truly believe in and are prepared to take the hard times because they believe they are honest and they are going to do what is good for you. And so they will, but when you take in 87, how much money he took?
Our population is too tolerant. They're not asking for that person yet. They're not willing to stand behind that person yet.
They haven't seen the person.
We haven't hit rock bottom, that's why.
Okay,
we have one last comment to get and then we close the show.
Why are you not on the telephone?
No, well, we getting them on social media, so it is what it is. Okay, why was the natural gas deal between TNT and Venezuela kept undisclosed? What was the reason behind us paying royalties or making any monetary advancement under this agreement? Well, I don't think it was undisclosed. We knew about the $1 million payment, although that could have been like a leak. I'm not sure if it came from an official communication source. I can't remember. But it's not something that was discovered recently. That was known from at least months now.
Isn't it an annual payment?
An annual payment, yes.
So all now, they still have a lease with Venezuela, right? Venezuela getting $1 million US a year, I suppose. Right?
Right. And the reason why we're paying it is that's what they negotiated. That's the best I could come up with. I don't know if there was a practical necessity to do it that way, or if it was, well, it's Nicolas Maduro and this is how you dance with the devil. That's the best I got. Right? So, and yes, there was a part of me that thought this seems like an utter waste of money, given the fact that even if Donald Trump lost, the Democratic administration was already signaling there were no free and fair elections in Venezuela. Come on, man. Things might, at the very least, we might have watched our OFAC licenses disappear into the ether when they weren't renewed. That might have been the best we could have gotten under Kamala Harris administration. I doubt it would have been renewed even under her. So with that said, thanks to the commenters for commenting. Thanks for Kindness Shachera for coming in and
sharing.
And
robustly.
And making a case, countering, I guess, you know what, doing a good peer review on an article. Let me put it that way.
Thank you, sir. I like that. It sounds academic.
It sounds so much more official, right?
Yes, I like that. That's a good assessment.
Folks, politicians, what can I say? This is just one of those things where if we want, we can separate the wheat from the chaff, but we have to kind of put in some effort as well. And I always try to tell you, they listen to you, you know.
Who listens to you?
The politicians listen to the population.
I know they do.
Right? So if you tolerate the nonsense, they will continue to do nonsense. That also is listening to you. If you demand more of them, I'll bet you money at some point, if we really, as a society, demanded more of them, they could do more and they would be willing to do more because they are trying to meet our expectations at the end of the day. It's our fault for setting the expectations too low. With that said, have a good day. Make it a good day. Stay safe out there. Remember your allegiance to this republic, Twin Island Republic, and to each other. And with whoever you may interact on the streets today, or even as in your own home, always remember, it's nice to be nice. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private health care affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available. The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcast,